Hi, my name is Cindy Harrison. Welcome to week 11. My project is called
Le Journal de Fleur.
You will find a list of supplies needed to complete this project in the PDF file. This design was centered around this decorative napkin I found it Tuesday morning. I love this napkin because of its vintage look and color scheme. You should choose a napkin that inspires you. Study your napkin to see what kind of elements, textures, and colors you would like to pull out of them. So let's get started. Take your notebook and a sanding disc or sanding paper of some sort, like this one, and sand the cover to give it tooth, so as the sealer has something to grab onto. Sand it in different directions. And when you're done, you're going to wipe it off with a dry paper towel. Now we're going to apply multi-purpose sealer to our cover. When you apply multi-purpose sealer, do it in different directions to avoid brush strokes. Don't forget to put your freezer wrap paper or disposable paper palette underneath it so that you can protect the pages of your journal from getting any medium on it. Be careful of all those little holes because you don't want to get any of the medium through that and they'll end up gluing your pages together. When it's dry, it will be tacky to the touch, but the white milkiness of the sealer will have disappeared. We're going to use a 3/4 inch brush and some light buttermilk. And I used light buttermilk for this piece because it matched my napkin. The white is too stark and the background of my napkin is more light buttermilk. So I'm going to apply 3 to 4 coats of light buttermilk. You want a look that is somewhat solid. If a little of the background is showing through, it'll be fine. But make sure that the most of it is covered with this light buttermilk or light value that you're using. And just like we did with the sealer, we're going to apply this in different directions. And be careful of those little round holes on the side. Also, what I noticed too is you want to pull your brush, your paint from the inside of the cover to the outside. You don't really want to grab like I just did. You want to go from inside to the out so that you don't make those gloppies on the inside of the cover. So I will fast forward now and see you back here when I'm done. This project took about 4 coats of the light buttermilk. Now you're going to get your napkin, and typical napkins are 3-ply. You have your top layer, which is printed, and then behind it you have 2 layers of white. You need to separate these layers. To do that, sometimes they can pull apart real easily like this, and other times they're stuck. And it's hard, especially to get that next layer that's closest to the top apart. If you can't seem to pry it apart with your fingernails, what you can do is then take tape, and you take a piece of tape and you wrap it around and stick it onto one finger. Then you take another piece of tape and you wrap it on and stick it to the other finger. Now that you have tape on both fingers, you're going to stick them to the napkin on either side. Make sure it's an area of the napkin that you don't want or that you're not going to be using, because it will tear the napkin. And then you just pull it apart and the pieces should come apart real easily at that point. Put the white part aside, and now you have the napkin that you're going to use for your journal. In looking at my napkin, I have this area here that has like a nice scrolly design behind it. I just so happen to have some ribbon with the same similar scrolly design, and I wanted to use it on my surface to repeat that texture and design in my journal, on my journal. So I placed my journal down, my ribbon down on my journal, and I realized it would also double as a bookmark. So I'm going to have an extra length there so you can pull it down and use it as a bookmark. I'm going to mark off that area now using the width of my ribbon and a T-square to mark off that width. And I place the T-square against the top or the bottom edge of the journal, and I slide it over to the width of the ribbon. You want to keep that against that edge, and that'll keep it squared to the surface. I'll remove the ribbon, and then I will use a chalk pencil to mark off the width of that ribbon. Now you take your napkin and you go to your paint pile and you pick out the colors that best match your napkin. I chose black and a coral blush, which seems to be the best color match for my napkin, and French vanilla is also part of my napkin. Now we're ready to paint that area. We're going to tape off this area first with some painter's tape. You're going to place it to the right side of the line you just created, and you're going to press it down with your thumb or finger to get it smooth so the paint won't bleed underneath it. I chose to paint the left side with a light pink value, which I'm going to mix light buttermilk with the coral blush because the coral blush is a little too dark, and I want it to be closer to my napkin. Originally I used the straight coral blush underneath my first one, and you can see how it's quite dark, and I wanted it to be lightened. So I'm taking some straight coral blush and mixing it with the light buttermilk. And this is what you'll find when you do your own napkin, if you pick whatever napkin you inspires you. If you have a color that's close but it's too light or it's too dark, go ahead and add some light buttermilk to it to lighten it up, or your light value, not necessarily light buttermilk, but your light value, or add a darker tone, a darker value of that color family. If it's green, add a darker green, add a little tinge of black, or add an earth tone like a burnt umber, or a raw umber is a nice dark color also. Play around with your mixes until you find one that works for you. Now we're ready to paint that left margin. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch brush, and I will paint it with probably 2 coats of the mix, drying in between the coats. Now that that's dry, we're going to gently lift off the tape. Hold down the cover and pull real slow so as not to lift off any of the paint. Now we're going to place the tape back down, but this time we're going to put it on the pink side, so on the left side of the line. Remember to smooth it out with your finger to make sure that no paint will be bleeding underneath the tape. Now I'm picking up my napkin. It's a cocktail napkin size, and I'm going to cut 1/4 or tear 1/4 of it off. If you know that what part of your napkin you're going to use, in my case I'm using the right margin or right 2/3 of it. And you can tear or cut. In my case, I know I'm putting it against a hard edge of the notebook, so I'm going to cut it first to keep that hard edge. If you're placing a napkin in the middle of a surface, you're going to want a torn edge because it blends better. So see how I'm placing it against the upper right corner. And I like this size because it cuts my surface into 3 sections. I've got 2/3 of the napkin, 1/3 of a bottom area, and then I have the left margin. And this is always appealing when you have things in odd numbers. So now I'm marking off the bottom 1/3 section by placing my T-square against the outer edge, and I'm going to take my chalk pencil and draw the line. And now I'm going to take a piece of tape, painter's tape, and I'm going to place it on the bottom of that line because we're going to be working on decoupaging our napkin onto our notebooks. If it's too sticky and you're afraid it'll take the paint off, put it onto your clothing to kind of de-tack it, if you will. Make it less tacky. Press down, and now you have that area marked off for your decoupage. Take that old scruffy brush again that you used for the sealer, and now you're going to take your decoupage product. This happens to be a matte decoupage, and we're going to use this to apply, it's an adhesive to when we apply our napkin to a surface. Apply your decoupage, and again in different directions, up and down, starting from the middle. You want to make sure you get to those edges, all the edges, the outer edges as well as the tape edges. If you don't, then your napkin will lift. So now I'm going to place the napkin down as close to the edge as I can so it will reduce my need to trim later on. But if you go over the edge, that's fine too. Try not to lift it too many times because it will tear. The decoupage will adhere and tear it. Press your finger down along the edges to secure the edge, and then use your bottle like a brayer. If you have a brayer, fine, and you're going to start from the center and roll towards the outer edges to remove any air bubbles or any extra decoupage that's not needed. Now that's done, let it dry. Now we're going to remove and reposition the horizontal tape only. You're going to take your T-square and place it against the edge of the tape. Make sure it's straight across on that edge of that tape that's on top of the napkin. Apply pressure on the T-square as you lift that tape with the napkin off of the surface, tearing the napkin gently as you go. Tear off any excess pieces of napkin that you might have that didn't get taken off with the tape. At this point, you can take your scissors and trim it. You can also trim any napkin that falls over the edge of your cover. Take that same piece of tape that you just took off and you're going to place it down, but this time you're going to put it above the line onto the napkin area. Run your fingers across, make sure that no paint can bleed underneath onto your napkin. Re-secure the vertical piece as well so that the new paint that you place on that bottom right corner doesn't bleed underneath the tape. That bottom right corner is going to be black. Now we're going to remove all the tape. First, you're going to remove the horizontal tape by just gently lifting it off of the napkin. If for some reason the napkin should tear, you can always take another piece of napkin and decoupage it over top of the area that tore off. When you get to the vertical piece, you're going to use your T-square, place it on the napkin side abutting the tape edge. With pressure on that T-square, you're going to gently lift off the tape with the napkin, tear them both at the same time, very slowly, with keeping the pressure on that T-square or ruler, whatever you're using. You may have some bleeding of the black, but since you're going to be putting the ribbon over top of it, it probably wouldn't even be noticeable. See how it just goes right over and covers it? So any bleeding that you might have might not even be noticed. However, if it does bother you, then you should go ahead and clean up that edge. I'm going to clean up the black edge, especially where it's against the napkin. Some of the napkin might have been torn away and the light buttermilk is showing through. So I'm going to add the black to just clean off that edge. Put that aside and let it dry. Now we're going to create the monogram medallion and the butterfly, and both were cut out of the canvas paper, but you can also use watercolor paper as long as it's relatively firm. So what I did was I took a piece of canvas paper and a 2-inch scallop circle punch, and I punched the piece out of the canvas paper. Today I'm going to punch it out of watercolor paper instead. Again, it could be out of a manila folder, cardstock, whatever you have that is firm and paintable. Now paint your medallion with French vanilla. Now we're going to burnish our medallion. We're going to do the coloring around the edge of the medallion. We're going to use straight coral blush and a stiff bristled brush, like a crescent brush. I like the stiff bristle hairs much better than the soft bristle hairs of a stipple brush. Pick up straight coral blush and work it into your hairs of the brush, and then wipe it off on a dry piece of paper towel. Very important it be a dry piece of paper towel, and what we call offload it. And then you're going to take your brush and start doing circular motion as you hit the edges of the medallion, going around the medallion. I found it best to work when the brush was on a chisel edge like so, rather than flat on like such. And by using the chisel edge, I seem to get a better results on my burnishing. Go to your PDF file and take up the second page that has your letters on them. You might need to enlarge the letters in order to fit on your medallion. Some of the letters seem to fit fine, but others need a little enlargement. Take the tracing paper and a pen or a pencil and trace the desired letter onto tracing paper. Before tracing it onto your medallion, you might want to just see what it looks like on there and decide whether or not you want a full scallop at 12 o'clock or if you want the valleys at 12 o'clock. So now I'm going to take the piece of tracing paper and turn it over, and with my chalk pencil, or if you have a lead pencil, you're going to trace that letter again on the back side. Turn it over, place it onto your medallion, and take your pen or pencil and draw over it again. And what you'll see is that the chalk pencil or the lead pencil that you put on the other side will show up on your medallion. Now we're going to paint our letter using our number 1 liner. I chose to use coral blush for my lettering. I took some coral blush, mixed a little bit of water, and you better to work at a 90-degree angle to your surface, straight onto your surface. It gives you more control on the thickness of your lettering. Now adhering our medallion to our journal cover, I first place it on there to know the orientation of the letter and where the medallion sits in that square. And I'm going to apply decoupage medium and roll it on. Now to add your butterfly. There are several different ways to make a butterfly. I happen to use a die cut with my Big Shot machine, and you layer the die cut in the paper between 2 layers of plastic and you roll it in like an old-fashioned washing machine. Cut-a-bug works in the same way. If you don't have one, it's not, a big deal. You don't have to have one. I just found it easier to do a lot of these items using the die cut, and I roll it through to cut it out. Another way is to have a paper punch, and today I'm going to use a butterfly cut out of a paper punch. It's a little smaller than what I originally used, but I think it'll work just fine. When adding elements like a butterfly or a bee or a dragonfly or whatever, you have to consider the other colors on your book and where you're going to be placing it. So if I place it there, I'll decide whether or not it should be a black or it should be a pink butterfly. We all know that it's easier to cover a lighter value with a darker value, so I'm going to paint this butterfly pink to begin with and see what it looks like. Pick up the liner brush to paint the body with black. Now I'm going to outline the butterfly wings with black. This helps it to pop off the surface better. If it was just pink, it would be hidden amongst the flowers of the design on my napkin. See how it shows up much better now that it has been outlined in black? I really like how it's turned out. Let's take our butterflies and put it aside for the moment so that we can pay attention to this area and finish up with our ribbon. We're going to adhere the ribbon using the decoupage medium. You need to measure off the length of the ribbon for the journal, but then add more than half of that length to make it a bookmark so that you can put it down behind through the pages and have a tail come out the bottom. You can also go the other way and have the excess off the bottom so that the tail hangs out the top, whichever you prefer. You're going to measure double the length plus 4 inches. This will also account for the thickness of the paper, so if you use the bookmark at the end of the book, you'll have enough. Decoupage medium is a sealer glue finisher. So this means you can brush it over top of your entire surface and it will be like a varnish and protect your piece. So I'm going to go over the painted area, medallion, and the napkin only. Trimming the ribbon. We're going to take that excess ribbon, bring it down through one of the back, if not the back page. Bring the ribbon down and cut it about 2 inches beyond the bottom of the page. If you're afraid that you might mess up making the tail, cut off an extra inch just for practice. With that piece, you're going to pinch it in half and you're going to take your scissors, make sure the corners meet, the edges are edge to edge and the corners meet, and you're going to trim from the corner up towards the center on an angle. And that gives you a little decorative tail. Now we're going to adhere the butterfly. If you want your butterfly to stand up like 3D, you can paint the back side. I'm going to line mine flat, and I'm going to use the decoupage to do it. And voila! There you have it, your beautiful journal to keep all your secret notes in. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you, and I hope to see your finished products posted on the forum. Happy painting! Here is an item that I found in my kitchen, a twining tea box, and I turned that into a little gift box saying, "Thinking of you." This would make a really nice gift box for someone special in your life. Here's a cookie tin that I turned into this beautiful little piece with the lace as a stencil, rickrack, and another brocade stencil that I found in a scrapbooking store. There's a lot of scrapbooking stencils that we can use in the decorative art world and beautify our paintings. The top is a die-cut rose and leaves out of the camber paper, and the doily is painted with a light value and stippled with a dark value over it to create that lacy look. Have fun looking through your cabinets to find new surfaces to create wonderful little projects out of. Take care until next time. Bye.